This is a bit of a break from the normal content that I produce, but I'm traveling across the country by train, and I wanted to share a bit of that experience. In July of 2023, I had the opportunity to travel across the country via Amtrak train. I boarded in Tucson, Arizona at 7:45 a.m. on a Monday morning. The boarding process is much easier than an airplane. There is no security to go through. Sometimes they ask to see your ID. Other than that, you just check your bags quickly and easily, which is free, and step on board. I'll be riding in a sleeping car today, which is considered first class on Amtrak long-distance trains. Meals are included in your fare, and these are full-service meals in the dining car with restaurant service. As you can see, this is bi-level equipment as I climb the stairs. My roomette, which is the smallest accommodation available, which is a private room, is on the second level. Mine was the last room on the left, and I'll show you more details of the room later in the journey. This train is called the Sunset Limited. It travels between Los Angeles and New Orleans 3 times per week. The train features the venerable bi-level Superliner coaches. My car is a Superliner 2 car, which entered service in the mid-1990s. The Superliner 2s, in spite of being younger, are somewhat more worn as they have not been refurbished as recently as the Superliner 1 cars. In spite of their age, the seats in the roomette are marvelously comfortable. Adjacent to the platform in Tucson is the Southern Arizona Railroad Museum, which is small but has some interesting exhibits. The Tucson train station was built in 1907, and in its heyday featured 8 trains per day, 4 eastbound, 4 westbound. There was also another train station with passenger service about a mile to our west. Though those tracks no longer exist today, the station building is still there and has hosted a restaurant for some period of time. Today, however, Tucson only sees 6 trains per week, 3 in each direction. In my opinion, this is unacceptable as this train is very crowded on nearly every departure. As you see, when I walk through the train later, nearly every coach seat is full and every bedroom is full. Since I'm boarding my train at 7:45 a.m., breakfast is still being served in the dining car. So I'll be making my way there shortly, and I'll start my meal before we even leave the Tucson station. I tried to be considerate by not filming people without their permission, so in the dining car I generally just took photos. It is community seating, so you will be seated with other travelers, which can provide for some interesting conversation. For breakfast, I had the breakfast quesadilla with a side of potatoes. It was delicious. Though your meal is included in your fare, you still should leave a tip for your servers. And my breakfast companions today from Alamogordo, New Mexico, helped me to take a selfie. We're approaching our first station stop on my journey. This is Benson, Arizona. Well, I say station stop, but it's really just a slab of concrete with a little bus shelter. It's affectionately known as an Amshack. Though this station is very small, it does get decent ridership because there's an army base about 30 miles away called Fort Huachuca, and many people will come from there to ride the train. 7 people got off of the train here in Benson, and 2 got on. At one time, there was a Southern Pacific depot here. The depot building still exists, but it is now owned by the city of Benson and is a tourist information center. Here's the old depot right now. So the intervening space used to be tracks at one time. As we accelerate away from Benson, Arizona, the next station stop is in New Mexico at Lordsburg. Now here's the best part about travel by train in the United States on Amtrak. It's the views. In the distance across the San Pedro Valley are the Whetstone Mountains, home of Kartchner Caverns State Park. The San Pedro Valley is interesting in Arizona because it trends north to south and the river flows from south to north. There are 2 other streams in the state of Arizona that also flow from south to north. Those would be the Santa Cruz River and the Chinle Wash near the Four Corners region. You just can't get views like this from 35,000 feet in an airplane. This truly is the most comfortable and relaxing way to travel. It's a pretty smooth ride for the most part, there's plenty of room, and you can get up and walk around whenever you want to. The mountains in the distance are the Rincon Mountains. Just to the west of those mountains sits the city of Tucson, from where I came. If we continue on time, I'll be sleeping overnight in West Texas. These high desert views are amazing in southeastern Arizona, home to such historic places as Bisbee and Tombstone. The rooms on the left are bedrooms, twice as large as a roomette, and featuring a restroom and a shower in your own room. I'll have an upcoming video featuring this accommodation. Coach class on Amtrak is far more comfortable than on a plane. You have plenty of legroom. This is the Sightseer Lounge car. Most Western long-distance routes feature this car, which has windows along the length of the car and curving up into the ceiling for excellent views of the landscape. The Sightseer Lounge car also features a cafe on the lower level, where you can get snacks and drinks. The cafe car is open most of the day between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. The lounge car features seating that faces the windows. Half of the car also has booths, where you can sit and play games or just socialize with fellow passengers. Not all Amtrak routes still feature the Sightseer Lounge car because of shortages of equipment and staff. The routes that no longer feature this car are the Texas Eagle and the Capital Limited. As cars become available, hopefully Amtrak will resume operation of the Sightseer Lounge on these routes. we're passing through land originally inhabited by the Apache. The mountains in the distance are the Dos Cabezas Mountains near Wilcox, Arizona. In those mountains is the Fort Bowie National Historic Site. This was an army base during the time that the United States Army was forcibly removing the Apache people from their land. Interstate 10 is in the distance, which we follow for much of the course between Tucson and New Orleans. We pass through countless small communities across the country, like this one of Bowie, Arizona. Originally a railroad town, there isn't much left here but a smattering of houses and agricultural land. We've just entered New Mexico. A small community of Steins, New Mexico. Since we entered New Mexico, that means we are now in Mountain Daylight Time. In Arizona, we were in Mountain Standard Time. So essentially, Arizona is on California Pacific Daylight Time, which means it just became an hour later. They've already started serving lunch, but since we just bumped the clock ahead an hour, I'm not exactly hungry yet. Pretty soon here we cross the Continental Divide, possibly in its lowest, flattest place in the United States. We're arriving in Lordsburg, New Mexico, currently traveling along Business Loop 10. Interestingly, there are very few businesses left along Business Loop 10. The town seems largely abandoned, with lots of vacant motels and gas stations. Most modern services are now located along I-10, just to our south. Lordsburg definitely looks like the type of town that history has left behind. Our station stop here is just like in Benson, just a short 12-foot long slab of concrete and a bus shelter. 2 passengers detrained and 1 got on the train in Lordsburg. Our next stop will be Deming, New Mexico. Fast forward a bit and we've just left Deming, New Mexico. Another station stop. Amtrak's long-distance trains are often the only public transportation connection to the outside world for many small communities across the United States. This is why it's so important to make sure Amtrak is properly funded. This is Amtrak train number 2 and 422, the Sunset Limited and Texas Eagle. It's 2 trains combined in one because they split apart later. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of just desolate open country here. We're right now in southern New Mexico. We just departed Deming, headed east. The next stop will be El Paso, Texas. I highly recommend this method of travel. It's slower, sure, so speed is important. Don't take the train. But if you want a comfortable ride with a wonderful, friendly crew and views that you just can't beat, tons of legroom, this is the way to go. For lunch, I was seated by myself. The dining car was not very crowded, so I took some video. Even though your meals are included with your fare, gratuities are not included, and you're encouraged to tip your servers just like you would in a restaurant. Menu shot, right now you're looking at the menu shot. That's a shout out to Miles in Transit. For lunch, I chose the veggie patty with artisan chips. It comes with lettuce, tomato, and onion, and your choice of dessert. After lunch, we approached the El Paso area. We're in extreme southern New Mexico, and you can see the international border in the distance with Mexico. The train line actually comes very close to the border fence separating the 2 nations. Just on the other side of that brown fence is the Mexican state of Chihuahua. There's an interesting bit of geography here, as the Rio Grande is the border between New Mexico and Texas for a short distance. In the background, beyond the railroad bridge, the river becomes the international border between Texas and Chihuahua, Mexico. So our view here is to the south, with the city of El Paso and our next station stop in the distance toward the left in the back of the photo. So right now we're traveling in between the northbound and southbound lanes of Texas Loop 375. You can see the international border just off to our right. The very tiny Rio Grande is just past the border fence. In fact, the river is so small here it's invisible in the picture. But on the other side of the river is Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. Here's another close-up view of the border fence. The Texas Highway Loop 375 actually rises above the border fence and travels between it and the Rio Grande for a short distance. And the cars traveling on the boulevard in the background are in Ciudad Juarez. Which means the Rio Grande is hidden in that small strip of green just past the freeway bridge. Shortly, we'll be stopping at the El Paso Union Depot, famous for the burrito lady who sells burritos to passengers on the train. El Paso Union Depot is a fresh air break on this route, which means you can usually step off the train for 10 or 15 minutes and stretch your legs. The land I'm walking on used to be occupied by more tracks and platforms when this station was much busier than it is today. This is a Horizon coach car which is not being used on this train. It's being deadheaded from Los Angeles to New Orleans. And here's the P-42 locomotive pulling our train from Tucson all the way to New Orleans. We soon depart El Paso to make our long journey through the deserts of West Texas. There are hardly any communities out here in the Chihuahuan Desert of western Texas, so when you come through one, it seems like an oasis. This is the small windswept community of Sierra Blanca. This is the town of Sierra Blanca, Texas. Interstate 10 is in the background. We will cross under I-10 here in just a few moments. And then we diverge a bit from I-10 off toward the south. I-10 goes to Van Horn, where we take a little farther south along the US 80 corridor. Maybe it is 90, to Alpine and Marathon. There goes I-10. We leave it behind. Eventually rejoining I-10 at San Antonio, which is still quite some distance from here. See, we still have a desert landscape. Some pretty tall mountains too in the distance. It'll will be dark out shortly after Alpine. These are the Eagle Mountains in West Texas, south of Van Horn. Eagle Peak is the highest part of it, 7,400 feet.
So when you're ready to go, let me know. We're gonna go. And she's a journalist. She's on her way to New Orleans. She will tell me all the places to go to. And tell her
As I enter the sleeping car, the bedrooms will be on my right. On the lower level of the Superliner cars, you'll find the restrooms. Also, in a sleeping car, there are 4 more roomettes, a family bedroom, and a handicapped accessible bedroom. There is storage space for luggage as well. The lower level is where you get on and off the train. This is the vestibule where the doors are to exit and enter the train car. As we head east through southwestern Texas, the mountains get a little farther apart from each other and a little lower. By the time we reach San Antonio, we will be in Texas's hill country, but the mountains and the desert will be gone. I am in the last car on the train, which sometimes has the advantage of being able to see out of the back window, but it's often dirty and difficult to get good pictures from. About 18 miles west of Marfa, Texas, you see this Border Patrol facility, which includes a blimp. Well, it was time for my dinner reservation. There are 4 entrees available to all sleeping car passengers. I had the only one that is vegan, and that is the rigatoni bolognese with a plant-based meat sauce with a side of vegetables. All dinner entrees come with 3 courses, an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. The desserts are enormous and very good. A shower is available for sleeping car passengers in roomettes. I had already taken my shower for the evening, and my room attendant was converting my room into nighttime configuration. But once it's in nighttime configuration, there's nowhere to sit. So I took my book to the Sightseer Lounge and relaxed for a while. The Sightseer Lounge car is almost empty after dark. This is what coach class looks like at night. Between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., it's quiet time on Amtrak trains, when no announcements are made over the PA system. But conductors and car attendants are always aware of any passengers who are getting off the train at a station stop in the middle of the night. As you can see, the lounge car is a quiet place to hang out at night. Finally, I'm ready to go to bed for the night. The lower berths are quite comfortable with plenty of support and cushion. The upper berth, not so much. It's quite firm, so if you require a softer mattress, I highly recommend using the lower berth. Well, good morning from San Antonio. This is an extended stop here because the train divides. The last two cars will head north to Chicago along the Texas Eagle route. Our part of the train continues east to New Orleans. Well, good morning from Central South Texas. Passing through Seguin. After spending about 90 minutes in San Antonio. The landscape here is remarkably different. A lot of grasses, small trees, larger ones near streams. Should be in Houston by 11:20 or so. Between San Antonio and Houston, I had lunch. I chose the loaded baked potato with vegan chili. It was fantastic. We're arriving in Houston, Texas with its impressive skyline. Our train is approximately 80 minutes late arriving in Houston. Delays like this are not terribly uncommon on Amtrak long-distance trains, but about 75% of the trains are no more than an hour late. Contrary to popular belief, the rails that Amtrak travels on, though owned by freight companies, Amtrak does have priority according to federal statute. However, sometimes the trains can stack up and it makes more sense to have the Amtrak train wait on a siding to let two freight trains pass. This can, of course, lead to significant delays. It's mid-afternoon and we're about to cross Lake Houston, which is a small reservoir northeast of Houston along the San Jacinto River. This river eventually empties into Galveston Bay about 25 miles to the southeast. Now some 950 miles east of El Paso, we are coming to our final station stop in the state of Texas, Beaumont. This is a fresh air break and a crew change, so we stay here for about 15 minutes. In the month of July, it was baking hot out here in Beaumont. Very humid. So here's what the roomette accommodation is like. You got a door there that slides. Privacy curtains, which do black out any light from coming in. They also have those on the windows. There are 2 chairs facing each other. They're quite comfortable. This one has all my stuff on it and 2 pillows. But this is where I've been sitting. So as you can see, it's only about 3.5 feet wide. But the space is used very efficiently. So down here under my GoPro stuff, these are the steps to get up here to the upper berth. You do have reading lights. This room temperature dial does very little. This time of year it's extremely hot out, so just keep it all the way to cool. You do have 1 power outlet, but you should bring a power strip to power your devices. And then these 2 chairs will fold down at night into the bed. That was the port of Beaumont. Beaumont, Texas. We're in the town of West Orange, Texas. Crossing a bayou, now entering Orange, Texas. We are approaching downtown Orange, Texas, which is right on the Sabine River, which marks the boundary between Texas and Louisiana. It's an old train depot. We're approaching the Sabine River. There's another small tributary that emptying into it as well. Once we cross the river, we're in Louisiana and in a wildlife area. I would imagine one may find alligators swimming in these waters. We're approaching another tributary of the Sabine River. Could be an older course that the river took. now left the wildlife area. We're entering Lake Charles, Louisiana. Entering Lake Charles, Louisiana, this rather rickety structure carries I-10. The appearance of this bridge does not inspire confidence. Over the Calcasieu River. While we're within an hour of reaching New Orleans, the last stop along this train trip. We're about to cross the Atchafalaya River, one of the most thoroughly engineered rivers in the country. This is the watercourse the Mississippi River would take if nature were allowed to take its course on its own. The Mississippi and the Atchafalaya come as close to as about 2 miles from each other, a bit to the north of here. But if the Mississippi changed course and took this route to the Gulf of Mexico, then the economy of New Orleans and the entire state of Louisiana would be severely affected. We are now crossing the Huey P. Long Bridge, which carries US 90 and the Union Pacific Railroad. The Mississippi River is underneath of us, and we're just a few minutes away from New Orleans Union Passenger Terminal. We're arriving about an hour and a half late. After arriving in New Orleans, I took a cab to the Alder Hotel. The hotel's staff was attentive and courteous, and though the train beds are not horrible, this bed in the hotel was a welcome relief.